The Richardson family's annual business dinner was in full swing at the Plaza Hotel's private dining room. As usual, my siblings were competing to share their latest triumphs. Our tech division just landed a government contract, my brother James announced, adjusting his Rolex. While Richardson Real Estate just opened our 15th office, Sarah countered, her diamonds catching the light. Michael, the youngest before me, smirked. That's nice, but Richardson Medical just acquired 3 new hospitals. Then all eyes turned to me, Emily Richardson, the family disappointment. I took a small sip of wine, already knowing what was coming. So, Emily, Sarah's voice dripped with false concern, starting another new business venture? What is it this time? I dabbed my lips with the napkin, buying time as my phone silently buzzed in my lap. A message from my COO, final paperwork signed. All 3 acquisitions complete. Just a small investment firm, I replied quietly. Another failed venture? Sarah laughed. Like that coffee shop last year? The coffee shop that was actually a front to evaluate their company's spending habits. Every overpriced latte had revealed more about their financial weaknesses. Speaking of ventures, James cut in, did you hear about that mysterious Atlas Group that's been buying up companies in our sectors? They've been circling our territories for months. I hid my smile behind my wine glass. Atlas Group, my company's public face, carefully separated from my real empire through layers of holding companies and shell corporations. I'm sure it's nothing to worry about, Michael waved his hand dismissively. Richardson Medical is too strong to be threatened. My phone buzzed again, transfer of ownership complete. You now control all 3 Richardson companies. Actually, I set down my glass, I wouldn't be so sure about that. Sarah rolled her eyes. Please, Emily. What would you know about real business? You can barely keep your little investments afloat. Those little investments just bought all 3 of your companies, I replied calmly. The silence that fell over the table was absolute. What are you talking about? James stammered. I pulled out my tablet, sliding it across the table. Atlas Group is a subsidiary of Phoenix Holdings, which is owned by Enterprises. I paused. Pie company. That's impossible, Michael whispered, staring at the documents. Atlas Group is worth billions. 4.6 billion to be exact. I smiled. Though that's just the public division. The private holdings are worth considerably more. Sarah grabbed the tablet, her perfectly manicured hands shaking. These documents, they're dated today. As of 3 minutes ago, I confirmed, I own Richardson Real Estate, Richardson Medical and Richardson Technologies. Complete ownership, not just controlling interest. But your failed businesses. James sputtered. We're market research. Every failure taught me more about your company's vulnerabilities. I leaned forward. The coffee shop showed me how your employees really feel about management. The boutique revealed your cash flow problems. The consulting firm gave me access to your client lists. Dad will never allow this, Michael declared. Dad retired last year, I reminded them. And his golden children just sold their birthrights because they were too arrogant to notice who was really buying their shares. My phone buzzed one final time, new signage being installed now. If you'll excuse me, I stood, smoothing my simple dress. I have 3 companies to restructure. Oh, and you might want to check your email. HR will be contacting you about your new positions. Those of you who still have positions, that is. You can't do this, Sarah protested. We're family. Funny, you didn't consider me family when you banned me from board meetings. When you mocked my little ventures. When you told clients not to work with me. I gathered my things. Consider this a hostile takeover. Emphasis on hostile. As I reached the door, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Sarah, that corner office you're so proud of? I want it cleaned out by tomorrow. It's mine now. The door closed behind me on their stunned silence. Outside, my driver waited with my real car, not the modest sedan they thought I drove. To the office, Ms. Richardson? Yes, I replied, checking the time. The new office. The one with my name on it. The next morning, I sat in Sarah's former corner office, now mine, watching the new Enterprises signs being installed across all 3 Richardson buildings. The city skyline offered a perfect view of my siblings' crumbling empires. Ma'am, my executive assistant Claire entered with a stack of reports. The transition teams are in place. And your siblings have been quite vocal about their new circumstances. I imagine they have. I opened my laptop to view the security feeds. Sarah was having a meltdown in the HR department. James was arguing with security about his access card. Michael was trying to rally his former board members, who now worked for me. My phone buzzed continuously with family messages. James, this is corporate theft. Sarah, you can't just take everything we built. Michael, Dad will hear about this. Mom, please Emily, be reasonable. Their email access has been revoked, Claire reported. Though Sarah tried to delete some interesting files before we cut her off. Our tech team is recovering them now. Anything incriminating? Very. Apparently, Richardson Real Estate has been falsifying property valuations. James's tech division has been inflating government contracts. And Michael's hospitals. She paused. Let's just say the audit team will be busy. I smiled, remembering all the times they'd lectured me about proper business practices. Should I call security for Sarah? She's threatening to barricade herself in your office. No need. I checked the time. Her credit cards should be declined right about. On the security feed, Sarah's face crumpled as her corporate cards were declined at the building's coffee shop. Their corporate accounts? I asked. Frozen, Claire confirmed. Along with their expense accounts, company cars and building access. Though Michael is still trying to enter the medical center through the service entrance. My phone rang, Dad's number. Hello, Father, I answered calmly. What the hell do you think you're doing? He demanded. Business, I replied. The way you taught us, aggressive, strategic, and absolute. By destroying your siblings' companies? By saving them, I corrected. Would you like to see the audit reports? The falsified documents? The creative accounting? Your golden children were running these companies into the ground. Silence on the line. How? He finally asked. How did you manage this without anyone knowing? Remember when you said I'd never understand real business? That my little ventures were embarrassing the family name. I turned to watch another Richardson sign being replaced with my company's logo. I learned from that. Built something bigger than you ever imagined while you were all too busy mocking my failures to notice my success. The Atlas Group. That was you all along? Atlas Group, Phoenix Holdings, Enterprises, I own them all. Built from nothing while your precious heirs were living off the companies you gave them. Claire appeared with more reports. The board members are ready for your announcement. I have to go, Dad. Unlike your other children, I actually run my companies. I paused. Oh, and about the family estate, you might want to check who bought it at auction last month. The new owner is planning some renovations. I hung up as Claire pulled up the company-wide video conference. On various screens, I could see my siblings being escorted from their former buildings, their personal items in cardboard boxes. Ready for the announcement? Claire asked. Almost. I straightened my designer suit, no more playing down my success. First, send severance packages to the worst offenders. Sarah's yes men, James's cronies, Michael's enablers. I want them all gone by lunch. And your siblings? I smiled, watching Sarah try to use her corporate credit card one last time. Send them each a copy of their company's real financial reports. Let them see exactly how badly they've failed. I paused. And schedule a family dinner for Sunday at my house. The mansion I bought from Sarah last year when her secret debts forced her to sell. That's rather cruel, Claire observed with a slight smile. No, cruel was them mocking every business I started. Cruel was being excluded from family functions for being unsuccessful. Cruel was watching them run our father's legacy into the ground while believing they were business geniuses. My phone buzzed with another family text, a group message this time. Sarah, we need to talk. James, you can't do this to us. Michael, the board will never accept you. Mom, please, let's discuss this as a family. I typed back a single response. Check your new employee handbooks. Chapter 1. How to Succeed Without Family Connections. The board is waiting, Claire reminded me. I stood, straightening my nameplate on what was once Sarah's desk. Time to show them what real business leadership looks like. On the security feeds, my siblings were finally leaving the buildings. Their buildings, my buildings. James was trying to keep his Rolex from the asset recovery team. Sarah was sobbing into her designer handbag. Michael was threatening legal action to increasingly disinterested security guards. One last thing, I told Claire. Have their personal items delivered to their homes. Except for Sarah's awards, James's plaques, and Michael's certificates. Those can go to my new office, as reminders of what happens when you mistake inheritance for success. The board members' faces appeared on my screen, ready for their new CEO's first address. Behind them, the last Richardson signs were being replaced with my company's logo. Time to show my family what their failed sister could really do. 1 week later, I sat in my executive boardroom, reviewing the true scope of my siblings' mismanagement. The audit reports read like a manual on corporate incompetence. The numbers are worse than we thought, Claire reported, displaying spreadsheets across the wall screens. Sarah was using company funds to maintain her influencer lifestyle. James had 7 unofficial consulting accounts. And Michael. She paused. Let's just say the medical board will be very interested in our findings. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing with family messages. Sarah, my social media sponsors are dropping me. James, the government contracts are under review. Michael, the medical board wants a meeting. Mom, your father hasn't slept in days. Their personal accounts? I asked. Nearly empty, Claire confirmed. Turns out they were all living on corporate funds. Sarah's mansion has 3 mortgages. James's Ferrari was bought with misappropriated tech division money. Michael's summer house was funded by hospital kickbacks. I smiled, remembering their constant boasts about their business acumen. The press is having a field day, Claire continued, pulling up news headlines. Richardson empire falls to mystery sister. Failed entrepreneur reveals billion-dollar secret. Family business drama. How the black sheep became the wolf. Any word from their lawyers? They can't afford lawyers anymore, Claire smirked. Though Sarah tried to hire one with her emergency credit card, which we cancelled. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Richardson, your siblings are here. All of them. I checked the security feed. They looked terrible. Sarah's designer clothes wrinkled, James's perfect hair disheveled, Michael's arrogant posture deflated. Send them in, I decided. Time for their performance reviews. They shuffled in like chastened schoolchildren, a far cry from their usual confident struts. Sit, I commanded, not looking up from my reports. Emily, Sarah's voice quivered, please, my sponsors are dropping you because they've discovered your lifestyle was funded by embezzlement? I finished. Yes, I know. The SC knows too. James stepped forward. The government contracts are under federal investigation. I cut him off. Those unofficial consulting accounts weren't as hidden as you thought. High hospitals, Michael began, are being audited by the medical board, I interrupted. Those kickbacks left quite a paper trail. They sat in stunned silence as I pulled up their financial records on the wall screens. Let's review your performances as executives, shall we? I stood pacing before the displays. Sarah, you turned Richardson Real Estate into your personal ATM. James, you treated government contracts like a shell game. Michael, you made healthcare fraud an art form. We can explain, Sarah pleaded. To the authorities, I replied calmly. They're very interested in your explanations. You're going to have us arrested? Michael whispered. No, I smiled. I'm going to do something much worse. I'm going to make you work for your money. Claire distributed 3 folders. What's this? James asked, opening his. Your new employment contracts. Entry-level positions. Real jobs, not executive titles you got by being born. Entry-level. Sarah looked horrified. But I was CEO of a company you ran into the ground, I finished. These positions reflect your actual qualifications, not your family connections. This is humiliating, Michael muttered. More humiliating than facing federal charges? I raised an eyebrow. The choice is yours. Work for me, learn real business practices, or face the consequences of your actions. My phone buzzed. Dad requesting a meeting. One more thing, I turned back to them. Sunday dinner will now be held at my house. The mansion I bought when Sarah's secret debts forced her to sell. Black tie attire, if you can still afford it. Why are you doing this? Sarah asked, tears smudging her expensive mascara. Because 5 years ago you all laughed when I started my first company. 4 years ago, you excluded me from family functions for being unsuccessful. 3 years ago, you told clients not to work with me. I sat back down. Now you work for me. Consider it a lesson in real business practices. And Dad? James asked quietly. Can watch his precious heirs learn what real success looks like. I nodded to Claire. Have security escort them to HR. And Sarah? I called as they stood to leave. That corner office you loved so much? I'm turning it into a storage room. As the door closed behind them, Claire brought in more reports. Their company credit cards are being shredded as we speak, she reported. Though Sarah tried to make one last purchase at your old coffee shop. The one they mocked as a failed venture? I laughed. How fitting. My phone buzzed one final time, a family group text. Mom, please come to dinner tonight. We need to talk. Sarah, I had to move back home. James, they're repossessing my Ferrari. Michael, the medical board wants all my records. I typed back, sorry, too busy running 3 companies. But I'll see you Sunday in the mansion that used to be Sarah's. Dress appropriately. Your new employee handbooks have guidelines for proper business attire. Outside my office, 3 new entry-level employees headed to orientation, learning their first lesson about real business. Success isn't inherited, it's earned. And I had earned every bit of mine. The smell of burnt coffee and stale grease hit me as I pushed open the rusty door of Joe's diner. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting an unflattering glow on the cracked vinyl booths and chipped Formica countertops. This was my inheritance. A failing diner on the outskirts of Boston, while my brother Marcus got the family fortune. I'm Olivia Carter, and this was supposed to be the worst day of my life. At least that's what my family thought. Well, what do you think of your inheritance? My father's smirk was evident as he gestured around the empty diner. Joe's been trying to sell this place for years. Couldn't find a buyer, so we got it for practically nothing. I ran my hand along the counter, years of grease and memories embedded in its surface. My mother stood near the entrance, designer purse clutched tightly as if the mere act of being here might somehow taint her carefully curated image. Of course, Marcus will be getting the bulk of the estate, she added, examining her manicured nails. He has the business acumen to handle it properly. The companies, the properties, the investments, about $8 million total. He'll know what to do with it. I nodded slowly, still taking in every detail of the diner. Where they saw peeling paint and broken dreams, I saw potential. They didn't know about my culinary degree from Le Cordon Bleu, or my MBA from Harvard. They had no idea I'd spent the last 5 years managing some of the most successful restaurants in New York City. It's perfect, I said quietly. My father's smirk faltered. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. Perfect? Olivia, it's a failing business. The equipment is ancient, the books are a mess. I know, I interrupted, moving behind the counter to examine the ancient coffee maker. That's what makes it perfect. My mother sighed dramatically. Darling, don't be difficult. We're giving you a chance to prove yourself. If you can somehow make this place profitable, maybe then we can discuss involving you in the family's real business ventures. I had to bite back a laugh. They had no idea that while Marcus was busy flaunting his trust fund at country clubs, I'd been building connections with some of the biggest names in the restaurant industry. They didn't know about the investors who'd been begging to back my first solo venture. When can I take possession? I asked, ignoring their condescending looks. My father pulled out a thick envelope. The papers are all here. Joe's happy to hand over the keys immediately. But Olivia, he paused, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown so familiar with. Don't expect any help from us when this fails. You're on your own. I took the envelope, my fingers brushing against the worn paper. That's all I've ever been, Dad. They left shortly after, my mother's heels clicking against the cracked linoleum, my father's expensive cologne lingering in the musty air. As soon as their Mercedes disappeared around the corner, I pulled out my phone. Sarah? It's Olivia. Remember that business plan we discussed? I found the perfect location. Get the team together. It's time. I spent that night in the diner, sitting in one of the worn booths, my laptop illuminating the darkness. Financial projections, renovation plans, and marketing strategies filled my screen. Where my family saw a worthless inheritance, I saw the first location of what would become the most innovative restaurant chain in New England. My brother Marcus might have gotten $8 million, but what I got was something far more valuable, an opportunity. And I was going to make them regret underestimating me. The next morning, as the sun rose over Boston, I stood in front of Joe's diner, my diner, and smiled. The renovation crew would arrive in an hour. The health inspectors were scheduled for next week. My team of chefs would start testing recipes in 10 days. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Heard about the diner. Tough break, sis. Let me know if you need a loan when it fails. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I pushed open the door, the bell chiming one last time before everything would change. The transformation was about to begin, and with it, my revenge served on a silver platter. Little did they know, this failing diner was about to become the cornerstone of an empire. And when they finally realized their mistake, it would be too late to claim a seat at my table. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. Joe's diner was gone, replaced by the local kitchen, a modern farm-to-table restaurant that perfectly balanced sophistication with comfort. The peeling linoleum had given way to reclaimed hardwood floors, the flickering fluorescence replaced by warm industrial lighting that cast a golden glow over copper-top tables. But the real magic wasn't in the decor. It was in the kitchen. "Order up," called Miguel, my head chef, as he placed another perfectly plated dish on the pass. The restaurant was packed, as it had been every night since our opening 2 weeks ago. Food critics from Boston's top publications had been singing our praises, particularly about our innovative take on classic comfort food. I stood at the host station watching the satisfied smiles of our guests, when Sarah, my business partner and best friend from culinary school, rushed up to me, tablet in hand. "Olivia, you need to see this," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Boston Magazine just posted their review online. We got 5 stars." I scanned the article, my heart swelling with pride. The local kitchen transforms comfort food into culinary art. Chef Carter's vision breathes new life into classic American cuisine. The first location of what we hope will become a growing empire. Sarah squeezed my arm. And that's not all. 3 different restaurant groups have reached out about potential partnerships. People are noticing. Liv. I handed back the tablet, straightening my blazer. Have they really not figured it out yet? Sarah shook her head. Your family? Well, they still think you're struggling with a failing diner. Your brother was at the country club last week, telling everyone how you'd probably come begging for help soon. I smiled, remembering the careful steps I'd taken to keep my success hidden. The restaurant was registered under a corporation name, not my own. Press releases used my title rather than my full name. Even our website showed only an artistic photo of my hands plating a dish, no headshot. "Well, they're about to find out," I said, checking my watch. "The investor meeting is tomorrow." The next morning, I stood in our private dining room, now converted into a meeting space. Around the table sat some of the most influential names in the restaurant industry: CEOs, investors, and food critics. They weren't here for a failing diner. They were here because the local kitchen had become the hottest restaurant concept in New England. "The numbers speak for themselves," I said, clicking to the next slide. "In just 2 weeks, we've generated more revenue than Joe's Diner did in its final year. Our reservation list is booked 3 months out. And this is just the beginning." James Parker, CEO of one of the largest restaurant groups in the country, leaned forward. "Your expansion plan is ambitious. 10 locations in 2 years. I nodded confidently. "We've already secured 3 additional locations. The second restaurant opens in Providence next month, followed by Portland and Hartford. By year's end, the local kitchen will be the fastest-growing premium casual dining concept in New England." The meeting continued, each slide revealing more of my carefully crafted plan. By the time I finished, the room was buzzing with excitement. Hands shot up, checkbooks came out, everyone wanting a piece of what they knew would be a massive success. That's when the door opened. Marcus walked in, his expensive suit and typical smug expression firmly in place. Behind him, my parents hesitated in the doorway, their faces a mix of confusion and dawning realization. "Sorry I'm late," Marcus announced, clearly not recognizing the caliber of people in the room. "When I heard there was an investor meeting about some hot new restaurant chain, I had to check it out. Always looking for new opportunities to expand my portfolio." The room fell silent. James Parker raised an eyebrow at me. "You know this gentleman, Chef Carter?" I smiled, savoring the moment. Yes, Mr. Parker. This is my brother Marcus. The one I mentioned who inherited $8 million while I got a failing diner. Marcus's smug expression faltered as he finally looked at me. Really looked at me, standing at the head of the table surrounded by industry titans. Olivia? What is this? This, I gestured around the beautifully renovated space, is the local kitchen. My restaurant. The first of many. And these, I nodded to the people around the table, are my investors. Well, potential investors. We're actually in the middle of discussing a $50 million expansion plan. My mother gasped. My father's face had turned an interesting shade of red. Marcus just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Now, I continued, turning back to the group, as I was saying about our projected growth. Wait, Marcus interrupted, finally finding his voice. Dad, we should invest. If Olivia's restaurant is worth that much. I'm afraid, I cut him off smoothly, we're not accepting family investments at this time. Or ever, actually. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a meeting to finish. The security guard I'd stationed outside gently but firmly escorted them out. Through the glass walls, I watched them stand in the parking lot, staring at the restaurant, my restaurant, as if seeing it for the first time. James Parker chuckled. Well, Chef Carter, I think I speak for everyone here when I say we're even more impressed now. Not just with your business acumen, but with your, shall we say, ability to handle difficult situations. I returned to my presentation, but not before catching a glimpse of my family getting into their car. They thought they'd saddled me with a worthless inheritance. Instead, they'd given me exactly what I needed to build my empire. And this was just the beginning. The news of my success spread through the family like wildfire. Within days, my phone was flooded with messages from relatives who had previously ignored my existence. Cousins who'd smirked at my little diner were now sending LinkedIn requests. Aunts and uncles who'd sided with my parents suddenly remembered they'd always believed in me. But the most interesting reactions came from my immediate family. Marcus tried first. He showed up at the local kitchen during lunch rush, wearing his most expensive suit, carrying a leather portfolio filled with investment opportunities. Come on, Olivia, he said, sliding into my office chair uninvited. We're family. Think about the potential if we combine my capital with your, whatever this is. He gestured vaguely around my office. I've got connections, influence. You mean Dad's connections? I interrupted, not looking up from my laptop. Dad's influence? What's the difference? He shrugged. The point is we could. Marcus, I finally looked at him. What's the current prime rate? He blinked. What? The prime rate. Basic business knowledge. What is it? His face flushed. That's what accountants are for. And what was your company's ROI last quarter? Look, he stood up, straightening his tie defensively. I don't have to prove myself to you. I'm the one with the real inheritance. I smiled. And what have you done with it? Besides buy a new Mercedes and invest in that failing crypto scheme. His face turned red. How did you? I have my own connections now, Marcus. Real ones. And they tell me you've already lost half of your inheritance. He stormed out, but not before I caught the flash of fear in his eyes. He knew I was right. My parents tried next. They were subtler, playing the guilt card they'd perfected over years of manipulation. We always knew you had potential, Mom said over coffee at her country club. She'd invited me, presumably to show off her newly successful daughter to her friends. We just wanted to motivate you. By giving me a failing business while Marcus got millions? She waved her hand dismissively. You clearly didn't need the money. Look how well you've done on your own. That's not the point, Mom. Well, what is the point? Dad cut in. He'd been quiet until now, watching me with calculating eyes. You've proven yourself. Now it's time to bring it all back to the family. We should consolidate our businesses, present a united front. I stirred my coffee slowly. Tell me, Dad, how's Marcus's portion of the inheritance doing? His jaw tightened. They knew. Of course they knew. Marcus had lost nearly $4 million in bad investments and risky ventures. That's why they were here, trying to get their hooks into my success. Everyone makes mistakes, Mom said quickly. That's why family is so important. We support each other. Like you supported me? Olivia. Dad leaned forward, his voice dropping to that authoritative tone he'd used throughout my childhood. You have a responsibility to this family. Your brother needs. No, I cut him off. What my brother needs is to learn the same lesson I did. Success isn't inherited, it's earned. I stood up, dropping my napkin on the table. The local kitchen is opening its 10th location next month. We're projecting over $100 million in revenue this year. And none of it belongs to this family. You ungrateful, Dad started, but I held up my hand. I've got a meeting with my investors. Real investors. People who saw my worth before they knew my name. I walked out of the country club, leaving them with their cold coffee and colder realization that they'd lost any chance of controlling me. 1 year later, I stood on stage at the National Restaurant Association's annual conference, accepting the award for Restaurateur of the Year. The local kitchen had expanded to 25 locations across New England, with plans to go national. From the podium, I could see my team, Sarah, Miguel, and all the others who'd believed in my vision from the start. They weren't just employees, they were my real family. Success, I said into the microphone, isn't about what you're given. It's about what you build. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as disappointments. And sometimes... I paused, catching sight of my parents and Marcus slipping into the back of the ballroom. The people who believe in you least are the ones who motivate you most. The audience applauded, but I wasn't finished. To everyone who's been told they're not enough, who's been given the scraps while others feast, who's been underestimated and overlooked, success is the best revenge. But it's not about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Later that evening at the reception, Marcus approached me one last time. He looked older, tired. The weight of squandered millions evident in the bags under his eyes. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should have seen it. Your potential. Your drive. I handed him a business card. The local kitchen is always hiring. Starting positions begin at the dish station. If you want to learn what real business looks like, you can start there. He stared at the card for a long moment before pocketing it. We both knew he wouldn't take the offer, but the message was clear. Success couldn't be inherited. My parents stayed in their corner, watching as industry leaders and celebrities came to congratulate me. They saw what they'd thrown away. Not just an $8 million inheritance, but a daughter who had turned a failing diner into a $100 million empire. That night, I returned to where it all began. The original local kitchen, transformed from Joe's Diner. Sitting in the same booth where I'd planned my empire a year ago, I opened my laptop. The expansion plans for the West Coast glowed on the screen. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Do you really mean it? About the dish station. I smiled, thinking of my own journey. Maybe there was hope for him after all. Yes, I typed back. 6 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising so high that those who doubted you have no choice but to look up and wonder what else they might have missed. And as for that failing diner they thought would break me, it turned out to be the best inheritance I could have asked for. Because sometimes rock bottom is the strongest foundation for building an empire. The autumn rain fell steadily outside Narita International Airport as I clutched my single suitcase, watching my family drive away. Their last words still echoed in my ears, mixing with the announcements in Japanese that I barely understood. You'll fail without us. My sister Amanda's voice had dripped with derision. You can't even speak the language properly. Come back when you're done playing explorer, Olivia. Dad had said, not even bothering to hide his disappointment. Your position at the family firm will still be there, entry level of course. Only Mom had shown any emotion besides scorn, though her tears seemed more from embarrassment than concern. What will we tell people? She'd whispered. Our daughter, running away to Japan like some anime-obsessed teenager? I was 26, with an MBA from Stanford and 3 years of international business experience. But to them, I was still the family failure who dared to dream beyond the walls of Harrison & Sons Consulting, our family's prestigious but stagnating firm in Boston. 5 years later, I stood in my corner office in the Shibuya district of Tokyo, watching another autumn rain paint the city in shades of gray and neon. My assistant, Yuki, cleared her throat politely. Harrison-san, the quarterly reports are ready for your review. She placed a thick folder on my desk, each page meticulously prepared. And, There are more applications from your family's company. I smiled slightly, picking up the folder. How many this time? 15, Yuki replied, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. Including your sister Amanda and your cousin Peter. The irony wasn't lost on me. 5 years ago, they'd laughed as I left everything behind to join a small tech startup in Tokyo. Now, as CEO of Sakura Innovation Group, one of Asia's fastest-growing technology consultancies, I was the one reviewing their desperate applications. My phone buzzed, a text from Amanda. Liv, please. Can we talk? The firm's struggling and your success in the Asian market. We could really use your help. I set the phone aside, remembering the day I'd announced my decision to leave. We'd been at the annual Harrison family dinner, an oppressively formal affair at the Boston Harbor Hotel. Japan. Dad had scoffed, swirling his scotch. What could you possibly learn there that you couldn't learn here, working your way up properly in the family business? Everything, I'd replied. The world is changing, Dad. American consulting firms are losing ground in Asia. We need to adapt to understand the market from the inside. Nonsense, Uncle Robert had chimed in. Harrison and Sons has operated the same way for 3 generations. If it was good enough for your grandfather, it's good enough for you. I tried to explain about technological innovation, about changing market dynamics, about the rise of Asian economies. They dismissed every point, every carefully researched argument. At least I'm dating someone with sense, Amanda had said, squeezing her then-boyfriend's hand. James is joining the firm next month. He understands the value of tradition. James, now my sister's ex-husband, was among the first to apply to Sakura Innovation Group when Harrison and Sons started losing major clients to more adaptable competitors. A knock at my office door pulled me from my memories. Takashi, my head of operations and one of my first allies in Japan, entered with another folder. The merger papers are ready, he said in the perfect English he'd helped me trade for my now fluent Japanese. Harrison and Sons board has approved all terms. I nodded, remembering how this had started. The small startup that hired me had seen what my family couldn't. That my obsession with Japanese business culture and technology trends wasn't naive enthusiasm, but calculated foresight. Within 2 years, I'd helped the company secure partnerships with major Japanese tech firms. By year 3, I was leading their international division. When the founder retired last year, the board unanimously appointed me as CEO. Should we proceed with the formal offer? Takashi asked. I opened my laptop, pulling up the latest valuations. Harrison and Sons, once the pride of Boston's business community, was worth less than a quarter of Sakura Innovation Group. Their client list had shrunk by 60% in the past 3 years, while we'd expanded across Asia, Europe, and yes, even America. Set up the video call with their board for tomorrow morning, I said. 9 a.m. Boston time. Your father will be there, Takashi noted carefully. As majority shareholder, he'll have to approve the final terms. I smiled, remembering Dad's last words to me at the airport. You'll come crawling back within a year, begging for your old job. I know, I replied, standing to look out at the Tokyo skyline. Make sure the call records properly. Some moments deserve to be preserved. Later that evening, in my penthouse apartment overlooking the city, I reviewed the applications from my family members. Amanda's was particularly desperate, filled with references to our shared childhood and family loyalty. The same loyalty they'd never shown me. My phone buzzed again, this time a message from Mom. Darling, we were wrong. So wrong. Please, the family needs you now. I set the phone aside and walked to my window wall, pressing my hand against the cool glass. Below, Tokyo pulsed with energy, a city that had welcomed me, challenged me, and ultimately helped me prove everyone wrong. On my desk sat a framed photo, the last family picture taken before I left for Japan. Everyone posed perfectly in their expensive suits, while I stood slightly apart in the simple black dress they'd mocked as unprofessional. None of them could have imagined that 5 years later, I'd be orchestrating the takeover of their precious family firm from an office in Tokyo. Yuki's voice came through the intercom. Harrison-san, your father is asking for an urgent meeting before tomorrow's call. He's offering to fly to Tokyo immediately. I thought about all the times he'd been too busy to take my calls during my first year here. How they'd all laughed when I missed Cousin Tracy's wedding because I was closing my first major deal in Singapore. Tell him I'm in meetings all day, I replied. He can present his thoughts during the board call tomorrow. Hi, Walker Mashita. Yuki responded, her tone suggesting she understood this was about more than just business. I picked up Amanda's application again, noting how she'd emphasized her international perspective, gained entirely from luxury vacations in Europe. How different from my years of learning Japanese business etiquette, of making mistakes and earning respect, of building something real while they mocked my choices. Tomorrow, they would all learn exactly what their naive relative had accomplished while they weren't paying attention. Tomorrow, the family that had laughed at my dreams would face the reality that their future now depended on my decision. I poured myself a glass of sake, a rare vintage gifted by one of our major clients, and raised it to the Tokyo skyline. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving others wrong, it's proving yourself right. The morning of the video call, I arrived at my office before dawn. Tokyo's lights still sparkled against the dark sky as I reviewed the final merger documents one last time. Each page represented a step in my journey from family outcast to industry leader. Yuki entered with my morning green tea, her usual calm demeanor slightly ruffled. Harrison-san, your family members have been calling since 3 a.m. Tokyo time. Your sister Amanda has sent 17 emails in the last hour. I opened my inbox, scanning the increasingly desperate messages. Liv, please don't do this to us. We can work something out. Dad's not sleeping. Mom's a wreck. Remember when we were kids? Family should stick together. The last one made me laugh bitterly. Where was that family loyalty when I'd spent my first Christmas alone in Tokyo, too busy learning the business to fly home, only to receive a group photo of them all at the annual Harrison party with the caption, "Missing our explorer. Hope the sushi is worth it." Takashi arrived next, tablet in hand. The Boston office is ready. Full board attendance confirmed. He paused, checking his notes. Your father appears to have been drinking. Of course he has, I murmured. Put them on the main screen. The wall-sized display flickered to life, revealing the Harrison and Sons boardroom. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Their dark wood paneling and oil paintings versus my sleek, modern office with its panoramic views of Tokyo. Dad sat at the head of their table, his usual impeccable appearance noticeably disheveled. Amanda hovered behind him while Uncle Robert and the other board members filled the remaining seats. Their faces showed varying degrees of desperation and resentment. Olivia, Dad began, his voice rough. This isn't necessary. We can discuss this as a family. This is a business meeting, I replied in crisp Japanese before switching to English. Shall we review the terms? Takashi began presenting the merger details. Sakura Innovation Group would acquire Harrison and Sons, maintaining it as a subsidiary but completely restructuring its operations. Most current executives would be replaced. The Harrison name would remain, but under my company's banner. This is robbery. Uncle Robert exploded. You're stealing your grandfather's legacy. I leaned forward, letting them see the Tokyo skyline behind me. I'm saving it. Your quarterly reports show a 40% decline in revenue. Your major clients are leaving for firms with actual international experience. Without this merger, Harrison and Sons will be bankrupt within 18 months. We just need time to adapt, Amanda protested. Like I needed time? I countered. When I proposed expanding into Asian markets 5 years ago, what did you say, Amanda? Stick to what you know, little sister. Leave the real business to the adults. He flinched, remembering. Your acquisition offer is insultingly low, Dad growled. I clicked to a new slide. Actually, we're offering 30% above market value. More than generous, considering your company's current trajectory. Shall I show the projection models? The next hour was brutal. I systematically laid out every mistake they'd made, every opportunity they'd missed, every market trend they'd ignored while clinging to their outdated methods. Their faces grew increasingly pale as they realized just how thoroughly I understood their weaknesses. You planned this, Uncle Robert accused. All along you were plotting to take over. I smiled, switching to flawless Japanese to confer with Takashi before responding. The board members shifted uncomfortably, excluded from a language they'd never bothered to learn. No, I finally said. I plan to succeed. Taking over your failing company is just a bonus. Olivia, Mom's voice came from off-screen. She stepped into view looking older than I remembered. We're your family. Family. I pulled up an email from 3 years ago, projecting it onto their screen. It was from Dad, responding to my invitation to visit Tokyo and see what I'd built. Too busy with real work to play tourist. Amanda just made junior partner. Try to be happy for her. I offered to help you modernize, I continued. To share my connections, my knowledge of the Asian market. You refused. Harrison and Sons doesn't need foreign influence, remember? Dad's face reddened. We were protecting our legacy. And now that legacy is mine. I nodded to Takashi, who distributed the final documents electronically. You have 1 hour to sign. After that, the offer drops by 10% every day you delay. You can't do this to us, Amanda whispered. Actually, I can. And I'm not doing it to you, you did it to yourselves. While you were mocking my decision to come to Japan, I was learning, adapting, growing. While you were clinging to grandfather's outdated methods, I was building something new. I stood, letting them see my full transformation from the uncertain young woman they'd mocked to the CEO I'd become. Sign the papers or watch your company dissolve. Either way, I win. And if we sign? Dad asked, his voice barely controlled. What happens to the family? I smiled, remembering all the family events I'd missed while building my empire. That depends. Are you ready to work for your little girl? To take orders from the daughter you said would never succeed without you? The silence was deafening. I'll take your current positions into consideration during restructuring, I continued. But understand this. Merit, not blood, will determine your future roles. Just like it determined mine. One by one they signed electronically, their defeated expressions visible in high definition on my wall screen. As the last signature came in, Takashi confirmed the transaction was complete. Welcome to Sakura Innovation Group, I said, switching to Japanese before ending the call. Let them wonder what I'd said. As the screen went dark, I remained standing, watching the sun rise over Tokyo. 5 years of work, of proving myself, of building something they couldn't dismiss or diminish, had led to this moment. My phone buzzed, a text from Amanda. I'm sorry. For everything. Please give me a chance to learn from you. Next came an email from Dad, its subject line simple, you won. I thought about the lonely nights when I'd first arrived in Japan, barely speaking the language, determined to prove them wrong. About the countless meetings where I'd earned respect through competence rather than family name. About the empire I'd built while they laughed at my adventure. Prepare their new contracts, I told Takashi. Entry-level positions. They need to learn the business from the ground up, the way I did. And their applications? Yuki asked, gesturing to the stack on my desk. I picked up Amanda's resume, remembering her mockery at the airport 5 years ago. File them with the others. They can compete for positions like everyone else. That evening, I hosted a celebration at my penthouse. As Tokyo's lights sparkled below, I raised a toast with the team that had helped me succeed. The people who'd become my real family. To proving them wrong? Takashi suggested. I shook my head, thinking of the long journey from that rainy day at Narita Airport to this moment. To proving ourselves right. My phone buzzed again. More messages from family members, alternating between apologies and accusations. I turned it off, focusing instead on the city that had given me everything my family had said I couldn't have. Success, respect, and the chance to prove that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming exactly who you knew you could be. Tomorrow I would begin the process of restructuring Harrison and Sons, of teaching my family the lessons they should have learned years ago. But tonight, I celebrated with the people who had believed in me when my own blood hadn't. Sometimes you have to leave everything behind to find what you're truly worth. Sometimes those who laugh at your dreams end up begging to be part of your reality. And sometimes the best way to honor a family legacy is to completely reinvent it. The next morning's headlines would announce the acquisition. My family would wake up to find their comfortable world transformed, their positions uncertain, their futures dependent on the daughter they'd dismissed. They would learn what I had learned in Japan. That true success comes not from inheritance or tradition, but from courage, innovation, and the willingness to risk everything to prove yourself right. And as I stood in my Tokyo office, watching another sunrise over the city that had made me who I am, I knew that this wasn't just a victory, it was vindication. 5 years ago they'd laughed as I left for Japan. Now they worked for me. Sometimes life's greatest pleasures come not from the success itself, but from the look on people's faces when they realized just how wrong they were about you. The future stretched before me, bright with possibilities. My family would either adapt and learn or fade into irrelevance. Either way, I had won. Not just the company but the right to be exactly who I was meant to be, without their approval or understanding. And that, more than any merger or acquisition, was worth every moment of the journey.